Hello and welcome back to another episode of Injustice For All MMA. My name is David, and this episode is for UFC Fight Night Lad versus Dumont. After weeks of testing the waters, after weeks of trying the MMA gods, we finally got one. After weeks of me bragging and being condescending, we finally have an injustice. The reason why we started this whole thing. The reason why I started this whole thing is we finally have an injustice. And we'll just jump right into it because it's not one of those injustices that are like, No. It's a robbery. It's a robbery. And when I saw it, I didn't like it. I got pissed. It's a bad robbery. You know when Felipe heard the decision, and we'll get to that in a second. But you know when Felipe heard the decision and said, no. Fuck. That's how Emev. That's how Emev should have felt because he genuinely got robbed. Okay, it's almost like the MMA gods came back and said, "Hey, that win you got against Collier, take that, Felipe." That's what it feels like. So there's that. But Emev got robbed tonight. And we'll just start off with that one. So the first injustice, and the only injustice on this card, Roerts versus Emev. Now, my scorecard reads 29-28 Emev, me giving him a 10-9 in the first two rounds. And Roberts going to get 10-9. That last round, I put a close marker on it. So naturally, I wouldn't be mad if I saw 30-27 for Emev. Obviously, I put a 10-9. I thought Roberts won that last round. But again, I wouldn't be mad if I saw 30-27 Emev. We'll read the scorecards. Saul D'Amato had it 29-28. That reflects my scorecard. Rick Winter has it 29-28 for Roberts with a 10-9 in the first and the third. We'll get back to him. And Chris Lee has the worst scorecard of the night, a 30-27. Now let's go back to Rick Winter. Okay, Rick Winter gets the last one right and the middle one right. Here's where I get confused. Here's where I lose everything. Here's where I die inside. And I'm not going to touch Chris Lee because Chris Lee's card is terrible. But here's what confuses me. Okay? Let's start with the second round. In the second round, both of them get a takedown. Emev has like a submission attempt and outstrikes Roberts. Okay? And Rick Winter scores that correctly. In the first round, Emev gets one takedown and outstrikes Roberts. But Rick Winter gets that incorrect. I'm confused as to how he gets it that way. I'm confused. It's bad. It's a bad scorecard. It's been a long time since I've seen an injustice on the card, so I don't even know what to say. I guess usually, when someone gets a round wrong, I go honorable mention for them, but I just forgot. I'm just going to say that's just bad by Rick Winter for the first round. He gets everything else right but the first round. Now over to the golden child that is Chris Lee. He gives out a 30-27. This feels like the Fiziev Bobby Green score. It's a little different, obviously. It's not in a crowd. It's in the Apex. A little different. Different kind of style. Much different style of fighting. But that's what this feels like a little bit. I just explained the first round. I explained the second round, and I explained the third round. I don't know how Chris Lee gives the oh my Lord and Savior. How is this a 30-27 for Roberts? It's not a 30-27 for Roberts. And if you take in Roberts' post-fight interview in the octagon, when he's talking to Michael Bisping, he says, I think I should have, I definitely got credited for those, for me defending his takedowns. And I thought about it for a second, and I thought, that makes no sense. Because it's not as though the judges are, you don't get points for defending takedowns. That's really not how that works. I understand where he's coming from. He's saying, okay, Emev is the wrestler, but Emev outstruck him in 2 rounds. And also, Roberts went for takedowns also. So I'm convinced, and didn't get them also. So that explanation really went over my head. The correct scorecard tonight was Saul D'Amato. So congratulations to Saul D'Amato. Bad scorecard from Chris Lee and Rick Winter. It's bad. I know I've been joking for weeks. Oh, we haven't got an injustice. I don't want an injustice. I don't want a robbery. Emev got robbed. And that's sad. And that's really sad. There's nothing more to say about that. That's the only one on the night. So we go straight into the honorable mentions. There's a lot of honorable mentions. 2 of them don't really matter, but there's a lot of honorable mentions here. It's a weird night of scoring from a few judges. We're gonna go to the first fight of the night, and that was Nunes versus Car Carnilosi. In the first round, I gave Nunes a 10-9. In the second, I gave a 10-9 to Carnilosi. So did Adelaide Bird and Saul D'Amato. But Dave Hagen, out of nowhere, gave a 10-9 to Nunes in the second. Honorable mention to him immediately. Bad scorecard for that second. I'll explain to you right now. In that second round, while Nunes did outstrike Carnilosi barely, it's really back and forth, barely, Carnilosi got 3 takedowns in that round. She didn't do anything with him, but she got 3 takedowns and barely got outstruck. That's her round definitively. Everyone knows that. Honorable mention to Dave Hagen. Next honorable mention. We're speeding through these because that Roberts versus Emev really took my breath away. It took my breath away. It really did. Next honorable mention. Sanchez versus Silva. Really nice fight. Really nice fight. One of my favorite of the night. I gave it 10-9 to Sanchez in the first and the second. Okay, and the only one who reflects that is Douglas Crosby. Now, Tony Weeks and Junichiro Kamijo give out a 10-9 to Silva in the first, which confuses me a little bit. It really does, because we've seen rounds like this. I've explained it before. Go back in the archives, you know what I'm going to say. But we've seen rounds like this before. Okay, where Sanchez gets a takedown, little ground and pound for about 2+ minutes. And the rest of the time in that round, it's a little back and forth. That round goes to Sanchez, definitively. The second obviously goes to Sanchez. That's doesn't really need to be explained. You can. I was expecting to see a 10-8 by one of the judges. I was surprised I wasn't. I didn't see a 10-8. I wouldn't have been mad if I saw a 10-8. Honestly, it's 6 takedowns. Didn't do anything with them, but it's a lot of takedowns. But I didn't give it 10-8. So personally, I didn't agree with those 2 scorecards from Tony Weeks and Junichiro Kamijo, so honorable mention to both of them. Next honorable mention is one that doesn't matter. I put a close marker on this, and for anyone who doesn't realize, and anytime I put a close marker on these, it's a very close fight. You can kind of toss it up to anybody, really. This was Landowier versus Klein. I gave a 10-9 to Landwehr in the first and the second. Rick Winter gave the first to Klein. Understandable. It's very close. Go look at the numbers. It's very close. Don't even forget the numbers, because when I scored these, I don't look at the numbers. Just go back and rewatch it. It's a very close fight. But Chris Lee and Adelaide Bird give Landowier a 10-9 in the first and the second. Rick Winter just gives Klein a 10-9 in the first. So I put the close marker on that. But obviously, in the second round, all three gave it to Landowier. There's no honorable mention there. Next honorable mention, Fioro versus Silva. My scorecard reads 30-27. Eric Colon has a 30-27. Douglas Crosby, who's been on a tear tonight. 30-27. And then Tony Weeks gives out the annoying 30-26. Unnecessary 10-8. And he gave it out in the third round. In the third round, Fioro got a takedown with a little ground and pound and outstruck Silva. It's an unnecessary 10-8. It doesn't belong. It really doesn't belong. This is madly unnecessary. No need for a 10-8 here. So honorable mention there for Tony Weeks. Next honorable mention, Miller versus Gonzalez. I gave a 10-9 to Miller. I was surprised at these judges' scorecards when I read them. In that first round, while it looked like Gonzalez was going to win that round, up until the end of that first, both of them got a takedown each. And Miller, by the end of that round, outstruck Gonzalez. That's why I gave him a 10-9 in that first. Junichiro Kamijo gave him a 10-9. But Chris Lee and Dave Hagen gave Gonzalez the 10-9. I disagree with that 100%. 100%. So, Dave Hagen, Chris Lee, honorable mention. All right. Another honorable mention was for Arlovski versus Felipe. This fight was close. Very close. It's so close that I'm a little unsure. And I'll read out the scorecards. I gave it 29-28 Felipe. The first I gave it 10-9 for Arlovski, and the last two a 10-9 for Felipe. All three judges had it the exact same way. Saul D'Amato, Douglas Crosby, and Eric Colon. That second round was very close, as per the numbers. Again, I don't know to lose the numbers, but before I saw the numbers, I had put the close marker on it. This was very close. You could have given the second round to either person, honestly. You could have given the second round to either person. All three gave it to Arlovski. That's fine. I gave it to Felipe. That's okay. It's a close marker, meaning you can kind of give it to either person. And since it's the second round, and each fighter got a round, the honorable mention goes to nobody. Definitely no one got stiffed here. But I do believe that Felipe won this fight. But no one got stiffed here. Then we go to the next honorable mention. Ladd versus Dumont. I had it 50-45 Dumont. As you know, you're wondering, David, why did you give the 50-45? Isn't it 49-46? Well, the last round was a clinch fight, which was basically Ladd landed probably 3 elbows. One of the elbows hurt bloody Dumont's nose, and Dumont basically just kicked and punched Dumont in the clinch for the rest of the round. In that fifth round. But here are the scorecards. So 50-45 for Dumont. That's my scorecard. With me putting a close marker on the last round. So you can argue a 49-46, which is Saul D'Amato's scorecard, 49-46. Chris Lee also, 49-46 Dumont. And then we're going to throw out an honorable mention here for Junichiro Kamijo, because he had a 48-47, giving the fourth round to Dumont. Now, here's what's funny about this, right? In that round, Dumont outstruck Ladd, obviously, got a takedown, and then in the last 35 seconds, Ladd gets a reversal and gives out very little ground and pound. It's kind of excuse me. It's kind of reminiscent to if I were to go back in my books, it's kind of reminiscent to it's kind of reminiscent to Dern Rodriguez in that second round, except Dern had I think maybe a minute. I believe a minute of not ground and pound, but a minute of top control where she gave out ground and pound, whatever. In this one, Ladd had about 30 seconds. Fam, she was getting beat for 4 minutes. And then 30 seconds of ground and pound. And Junichiro Kamijo decides, yeah, that's her round. That's definitely an honorable mention. All right. Overall, as we know, great night of fights. Minus all the ticky-tacky honorable mentions, the only bad thing on this card is that Roerts versus Emev fight. Man got stiffed. It is what it is. Hopefully it doesn't hurt him, but that's how it goes. As always, thank you for listening, and God bless.